Okay, good evening. Welcome to the Kent City Council Committee as a whole. Today is March 17th, St. Patty Day, and Xander, you're doing a good job of representing the Greens, so thank you. We're going to get started here, so thank you so much. Appreciate that. First, we're going to roll calls. Please, Melissa.
And Council President Corr. Councilmember Boyce.
Here.
Councilmember Boyd.
Here.
Councilmember Larmer.
Here.
Councilmember Michaud.
Here.
Councilmember Shoker.
Here.
And Councilmember Troutner.
Here.
Thank you.
Thank you. So item number 3, the agenda approval. Any changes to the agenda, Pat?
No changes, Your Honor.
Thank you, sir. Councilmember, any changes? Seeing none, we're going to move on. I'm going to ask for a motion for approval of the agenda.
So, second.
Motion is second. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Let the record show it pass. Number 4, department presentation. We got operation here. I'm going to ask for a motion for approval of the minutes for March 3rd.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, motion is second. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Let the record show unanimous pass. Item B is payment of the bills. Ask for a motion to approve payments of the bills.
So moved.
Second.
Motion is second. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Let the record show unanimous pass. We're going to move on to the Economic and Community Development, and Councilmember Larmer is our subject matter chair.
Thank you. So this afternoon, we have 2 items. There is action for both of them. The first item, Deja, you for both of them. So, okay, we're going to start with the ordinance amending Title 14 and 15 of the Kent City Code regarding historic preservation and Mill Creek Historic District.
Good afternoon. So I am here for my first presentation to present updates to the Historic Preservation Code as well as Mill Creek Historic District. So jumping right into historic preservation here, so State House Bill 1576 is a bill that was recently passed by legislation that states that cities must adopt regulations that prohibit the designation of a property as a historic landmark outside of historic district if the property is less than 40 years old, if the designation would restrict the use, alteration, or demolition of the property, and if the property is less than 125 years old, and the property owner has not given written consent to said designation. So currently the City of Kent already regulates historic designations through our interlocal agreement with King County. We also adopt King County Code by reference, and that's Code 2062-040. So under this adopted code by reference, the city already complies with that less than 40 years old bullet there. However, the remaining provisions are not fully reflected in Kent City Code or King County Code. So what we will be adopting is what you see highlighted. We'll also be adopting regulations for when a property can be designated as a historic district without written consent. Moving on to our Mill Creek Historic District. So you may remember in our Phase 1 of Recode Kent, we had some community concern regarding maintaining the historic character of this area. However, we weren't quite able to get to it in our Phase 1. So we're here in Phase 2 to adopt and formally recognize our Mill Creek Historic District in language around the Mill Creek Historic District guidelines. So this district is not new. It was approved for landmark designation nomination in 2013 and then designated as a historic district by Kent's Landmark Commissions in 2014. And then the corresponding guidelines were adopted by King County Landmarks Commission in 2020. So it currently resides in our NR2 zone. So during this process, we did outreach with King County, Mr. Michael Johnson. So he's a community member who is a part of our Mill Creek Historic District Board and the Kent Historical Society. And we also presented at the Mill Creek Historic District Board meeting to create this draft that explicitly provides language around the preservation of historic buildings and property within this area. Moving on to the regulations and the changes that we made. So we only did a few. They were quite small. So our first was adding a footnote to our district regulations, and that footnote says that all development within the Mill Creek Historic District shall be subject to the requirements set forth in 1508-20 or 220. So 1508, 220 is really where we put the meat of our regulations here. So we split it up into 3 sections. So the first is sites located within the Mill Creek Historic District. So that basically just provides location of the Mill Creek Historic District, showing that map that I showed here previously in the previous slide. The second section is applicability and review process. This just states that the new construction and exterior modifications are subject to the Mill Creek Historic District guidelines, which is a separate document, along with the certificate of appropriateness procedures with King County. Lastly, we have our preservation of the existing structures. So this is where we added new language around preservation. So we constructed code language around contributing and non-contributing properties. So these are 2 types of properties that are within the Mill Creek Historic District. Contributing properties are those that were built before 1962 and still have that historic character, while non-contributing properties are properties that have homes or buildings that were built after 1962 and no longer have that historical character. They may have been remodeled or something of that nature. So because of that, non-contributing properties do have less regulations. There is only one regulation, in fact, in our code updates here. So for non-contributing properties, if a new construction home is proposed, the style of that new home or a new construction building, whatever the case may be, shall be compatible with architectural styles established in our Mill Creek Historic District Guidelines booklet. So again, that's an external document. And as far as contributing properties, so we have about 3 main regulations here. So the first is they are not allowed to demolish a building or a structure unless it's been severely damaged by some unforeseen event or some natural disaster. And if that is the case, they still will have to submit for a certificate of appropriateness with King County. So that's a separate process where King County says you are allowed to demolish or you're not allowed to demolish. In the case of an unforeseen event and there is complete loss of that home, again, similar with non-contributing properties, the new construction must match the same architectural style as outlined in our Mill Creek Historic District Guidelines. And now that new construction home or building, whatever the case may be, is now considered non-contributing, so it's no longer deemed historic. And if a home is partially damaged or a building is partially damaged, the applicant or the owner must consult with city staff along with King County staff to determine the extent of that damage and if rehabilitation is feasible. If we find that it is feasible, then they will have to consult with King County, and King County will provide assistance, some technical support or grants, whatever the case may be. And if we find that it's infeasible, then they'll have to submit for a certificate of appropriateness with King County, again, where King County will determine if demolition is allowed or not allowed. And that is the gist of our code updates for historic preservation in our Mill Creek Design Guidelines, or our Mill Creek Historic District, rather. So on March 9th, we did hold a public hearing with Land Use and Planning Board, and they did make a formal recommendation for approval in a 6-1 vote. We did have one comment during this hearing, and that was from our community member, Michael Johnson. He was in support of the amendments and the dedication to adopt the regulations for the Mill Creek Historic District. So if you all approve this vote, we will go on consent calendar, or this will go on consent calendar on April 7th. And that is all I have for you all, at least for this one.
Any questions on this one? Okay, if not, I'll read the motion. I move to adopt ordinance number 4535, amending chapters 14.12, 15.4, and 15.8 of the Kent City Code to address historic preservation in the Mill Creek Historic District.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? If not, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. That motion passes. Okay, Deja, you want to take us to the next one then, which is the ordinance amending Chapter 1504, Community Commercial Zone, and this is one that we've talked about previously, I believe.
Yep. So I'm here to present the community commercial zone updates. So we did talk about this previously. And just a reminder here, as you see on your screens, circled in red, this is where a good portion of our community commercial and community commercial mixed-use zones are housed or reside. It's also where our southern part of our Benson corridor is on 104th. So per comp plan, there's a vision for this area to be robust and mixed use. It also calls for this area to have residential and commercial supporting each other. This area is also designated as an activity center and a designated county growth center. However, because of legacy code, there has been limited redevelopment and residential growth, so it hasn't quite reached that vision yet. The proposed changes reduce barriers to new construction and incentivize mixed use, not in just one building, but also horizontally on a same site. We're also looking to increase homeownership options in this area by addressing those barriers as well. And I know we talked last time, and after further evaluation from that previous time, we did decide to include our CCMU overlay, so our community commercial mixed use overlay, because these barriers also do go through the CCMU or go through the CC and the CCMU. So they go across the board essentially. And these changes are aligned with our comp plan and our environmental impact statement. So this will just be an interim step before we do a holistic change with our Benton Corridor plan. And as I mentioned, we do want to increase or encourage housing opportunities, in particular townhomes. So they not only provide that homeownership side of housing, but they also provide denser housing that fits really well into commercial and mixed-use areas. So we're looking to encourage housing that looks like this, with possible some garages in the back, but mostly things that look like this or some variation of this. So these are the units that are most likely to be built at this moment, and this is just from desire we're hearing from our builders and from the public. The market is most likely to produce townhomes. However, the proposed changes will open up opportunities for other housing options and housing development as well. So going into our actual code changes here, so we have about 6 major code changes. So prior to the proposed code changes, residential and mixed-use development were only allowed in the CC zone if they were in the CCMU overlay. And that CCMU overlay had its own separate mixed-use requirements. So we've essentially merged the two, so they're no longer separate requirements if you want to do mixed use and you can only be in CCMU. We've now made it so they're one and the same. We've also increased permitted land uses, so townhomes, different types of multifamily, live-work units are now all allowed in the CC zone and the CCMU overlay. However, within the CC zone, these uses are only allowed within a quarter mile of 104th Avenue Southeast. We also did some minor cleanups to corresponding footnotes to these uses. We increased maximum site coverage, height, and decreased required setbacks, and updated design review requirements. And I will further get into that in this next slide here. So we increased max site coverage from 40% to 80%, so that will increase the building footprint, lessening the amount of service parking we may have, and incentivizing underground parking or parking under a building. We decreased setbacks from the front and rear to align more with the regulations that were required within the CCMU zone before we consolidated them. We also retained the setback protections for when a development is next to a neighborhood residential zone. We also updated height to state 5 stories. So old code allowed increases between 5 to 7 stories. However, that process was a little unclear. So we're allowing the 5 stories outright with an additional 2-story incentive for structured parking or mixed-use development. And lastly, we updated design review requirements. So prior to mixed-use or residential uses were required to do mixed-use design standards. However, with this update, we're applying multifamily design standards or requiring multifamily design standards as they're a lot more comprehensive and more requirements for residential and pedestrian spaces. And that is all I have for code updates. We did also have a hearing on this on March 9th, and the Land Use and Planning Board did do a formal recommendation for adoption and a 6-to-1 vote. We had 1 written comment from the master builders, and they were supportive of the revisions and felt that they reduced barriers and lowered redevelopment costs and created a much-needed flexibility for builders seeking to produce mixed-use and residential projects. Again, if you approve this vote, it will go into the consent calendar on April 7th.
Great. Okay, any questions? Okay, if there's no questions, I'll read the motion. I move to adopt ordinance number 4536, amending Chapter 1504 of the Kent City Code to update development standards for the community commercial zone and the community commercial mixed-use overlay.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. Thank you, Deja. Appreciate it. And that is it for economic and community development.
Thank you, Councilmember Larmer. We're going to move on to public safety. Then we got Chief Padilla going to come up here and share some good news about grants.
All right, good afternoon. It's a rare Cal presentation by me, but this is good news. I'm here to ask you to accept grant funding we were awarded and tell you all about that. So grant fund for public safety resources, a little bit of history on that, how we got here. If you guys recall, and you know I've said this a million times, Washington State's the lowest per capita staffing for law enforcement, right? We're 51st in the country if you include Washington, D.C., and we have been in this current last place position for 14 years. During the gubernatorial campaign, then Attorney General Ferguson, now Governor Ferguson, committed to establishing funding to increase law enforcement in the state to address this issue. When he became governor, the 2024 state legislature adopted what we call House Bill 2015. And what that allowed for, which was for local government to impose a 0.01% sales tax to fund public safety, and it establishes $100 million in grant funds available. So we got to work, and as you guys recall, in 2024 and 2025, our top legislative priority was officer staffing, law enforcement staffing. This council and Mayor Ralph strongly supported that and made that the priority for those 2 years. In the House Bill 2015, we presented back in June 17th of 2025. The mayor was very clear that these funds would go to officer positions, and that's where we're at for the bulk of what we're using the funds for. And you voted on September 16th to approve the tax, right? And that put us in line to be able to start collecting that tax this January 1. That got us right at the earliest opportunity. So what came with that, and why I'm here today, is that, one more slide, please. There we go. Is that when you get approved for the tax, you simultaneously get approved for the grant funding through CJTC. And so CJTC established the criteria, and we got to work on that. Be very upfront, and this isn't a complaint, probably the most arduous, well, not probably, the most arduous grant process that I've ever seen in my career. The requirements were incredibly high, and as good of a police department as we are, they were not attainable for us or, quite frankly, anyone else in the state. A lot of that had to do with the new rules and requirements that were established and some translations of what the law meant and what policy meant to people at CJTC or the Attorney General's office versus practitioners like us here in the field. This was literally weeks and months of work. Adoptions to the Attorney General's use of force model policy had to be implemented, Keep Washington Working Act model policy, firearms relinquishment policy, protection order policies, and there was a clause about prohibiting volunteers from doing criminal law enforcement or using force. And then a huge increase in training requirements for officers, new courses that didn't even exist at the time, and new deadlines for completing them. Some deadlines were pushed out to 2028, are now coming due as of June of this year, for instance, that we have to get done and we got to work on. The good news is Kent was positioned, sorry, I have the clicker here, I could use it. I'll do that. If there was going to be an agency that was going to make this happen, it was going to be ours. And we really looked at this as we could not fail. The need here in Kent was so great, and the support that you offered us was so strong that we just felt like we had to get this done. And so that's how we approached it. We were positioned, like it shows there, at being an accredited agency through the Washington Association, the sheriffs and police chiefs put us in strong position with strong police and accountability practices already. We have huge support from our legal department. Tammy White's amazing. We don't approve or implement any policy with a law review. Any contracts get reviewed. It's very extensive. We create her and her team a lot of work, and I'm sorry for that, but it's necessary. And then you know that we're a department that has a culture of innovation, right, and community-based programs. We've demonstrated our success in hiring, and like I said, we just looked at it as we couldn't fail. So all of that and the mountain of work that I've talked about already a little bit got us to where we are. And I'll save a little bit of time by just saying we cracked the code and we were the first to get approved for the grant as well. And so we are currently the only agency in the state has been approved for both the tax and the grant funding. And so we'll talk about what we're getting out of the grants. The other thing is now we are the go-to source in the state. We're sharing all of our documents, all of our files, our process. For instance, I got off the phone about an hour ago with the chief of Mercer Island. And so we're getting them set up. Our goal is to help every agency in the state attain this funding as well. All right, but wait, there's more. Let me go back. So what are we putting in for? If you look at that second bullet point there, we put together a grant request. It was kind of a cool week or so that we had where we realized we're the only agency eligible for $100 million. So we did put in a substantial ask. We were looking to we were approved for 20 officers, higher head salaries for 1 year. I want to be really clear. I think the media release that came out, not from us, made it sound like we were getting 20 new officers. I wish. That is not the case. We're getting 10 officers from the tax, so that's good. But these 20 higher heads allow us to account for significant attrition that we have forecasted for 27 and 28, which I'll speak to here in a bit. It also covers de-escalation training for officers, all of our officers. This was a requirement for us to be qualified, and we thought, well, great, then maybe they should pay for it, and they are. Another requirement in the training is use of force review training for all of our supervisors. So this is training and course on how to look at body-worn camera, investigate, and make sure we're doing our due diligence for any use of force incidents. And then we were able to get money for 48 new medical sensors at our jail, which I'll give you some information on here a little bit. In total, our request was $1.92 million, and we got $1.92 million. All right, so backing up just a second. If you guys remember, about a year ago, the Kent Police Officers Association dissolved and became Teamsters Local 117. The main driver for that was that Teamsters Local 117 offers medical retirement. The requirement to qualify for that medical retirement is that you have to be vested in union for 30 months. Well, that clock started last year about this time. That clock comes due about the fall of 2027, at the end of 2027. Suffice it to say, many people who were going to retire haven't and are waiting. And with the help of HR and cooperation from our union, Teamsters, we were able to do an employee survey on retirements. And as you guys know with surveys, getting respondents to answer, yeah, good luck. We actually got a substantial response, and I really appreciate that. Here's what the result was. 48 of our employees told us they were leaving, okay? 63% of everybody that in the ranks participated in the poll. That was our responder rate. 35 of those were sworn, 10 were non-sworn. We had 18 respondents who indicated that they were leaving in the next 4 years, but weren't sure which year. So you'll see that on the next graph, right? 17 of the 45 who are retiring are supervisors. 20 of the 45 are in specialty positions. So a lot of knowledge and special skill we're going to be losing here pretty soon. So the attrition rate by year, this is what we projected out. So 2026, kind of normal attrition there, but in 27, you see how it jumps. The orange represents committed retirements from the survey. The 6 that are above, and the other yellow parts of the graphs, we just divided the 18 up into equal years just to play it safe to say, okay, we'll just account for it that way. The reality is that it could be all 18 in addition to the 10 in 2027. We just don't know, okay? We think that people that haven't determined what year are more likely to be on the other end of it, though. So impact in the next 4 years, we realize that we have to onboard 60 people in the next 4 years. That's doable. We can do that. Our previous goals at hiring tell us that in order to get to 60, we need to hire 80 to 90. We have a built-in attrition rate that ebbs and flows a little. We try to hire people that we know will make it through the program and pass training, but that's our attrition rate still. The first wave of retirements, like I said, is expected for Q3 of 2027. The higher head rate is what we're doing is we're going to hire 5 officers per quarter beginning in January of 2027. So 5 each quarter until we fill out the year with 20, okay? As retirements occur at the back end of this, new officers will be coming off of this grant funding and moving back onto regular general funding or public safety funding, whichever positions are slotted. If we do this right, the impact to the city budget will be negligible, if anything at all. But playing it as though we're going to pay the full bill, here's what it looks like. In Q1, to hire 5 officers for the entire year, that's the grant money, there's the city match. The grant it only pays for 75% of salary and benefits, and the city is required to pay the other 25%. That's a stipulation in the grant. Q2, you see the numbers there, Q3 and Q4. They get less and less because the amount of time that we'll have them on the grant funding shrinks by a quarter each 5. So total grant for officer hire head is that 1.5 mil there, and the city matching funds is almost $580,000, okay? As that settles in, let me give you a little bit of good news. So we sustain salary savings, as you know, every year from unfilled positions. We've really shrunk that number down over the recent years because we've been nearly fully staffed, right? So that went down substantially. Looking at the numbers and the rate of attrition that we've planned out there and being really conservative, we project that by Q4 of 2027, the salary savings will still be about $428,000, okay? So that's only 10 of the 16 potential retirements coming to fruition. Projected salary savings for Q4 of 2028, the following year, drops down to a little over $250,000. Combined, we're looking at about $684,000 in salary savings over the biennium. If you remember, our full amount committed was just a little over $574,000. So if everything goes the way we'd like it to, and I want to be clear, people have to retire and we have to hire, we think the impact on the city budget will be pretty small. Here's some of the assumptions we made to get to our numbers. Again, hiring starts in January of 27, and we need one of the big to-dos is we need to be 100% fully staffed by December 31st of 2026. And I know we can do that, and that's what we're going to do. Before we go into sensors, I'll pause there for some questions.
Okay, Chief, historically, do your officer let you know when they're going to retire, or is it just they tell you on day one I'm retiring?
I've had some give me as much as 6 months so we can plan, and I've had people give me as much as a day. So it really varies. Most people give us probably in the ballpark of a month to 2 months.
So that allows you plan, you're doing this cohort by quarter, so you have a good indicator, Q1 versus Q2, for how much you need to do or not do, right?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
Okay, makes sense. Thank you. Any question, Molly, please?
Chief, so question, I'm just kind of doing the math here and trying to understand. Thank you. Turn my mic on. Okay, so just doing the math here, it looks like we're saying that we can fund the 10 new positions for 1 year out of this. Is this the type of grant situation where they're going to come back and change and decide that in year 2 we're getting a different amount, or they're giving more of the money to a different jurisdiction?
Good question, and let me clarify. So this part's really, thank you for this, because it gives me an opportunity, because everybody has this similar question. So this funding source has two, let's call it 2 pots, right? So the 0.1% tax is one designated pot. Your city ordinance that you passed allows us to use that for public safety purposes. And right now, we're committed to 10 officers, a corrections officer, a prosecutor, evidence tech, and then offsetting some of the increase in defense spending. So that pot is set. That's our money now for the city.
So the 10 are coming out of that?
Yes,
okay.
10 coming out of that. The 20 higher head is coming out of the grant. One of the provisions with the grant side of the fund in that pot is there is a supplanting clause which doesn't allow us to use this money to offset current general fund spending. So it has to be things for new initiatives or additions, that type of thing. Obviously, one-time money, we can't hire FTEs, or we would. I would have asked for $100 million for FTEs, but that wasn't part of the deal. So did I answer your question?
It does, thank you.
Any other question, council member? We good? Okay, proceed, chief.
Okay. So also with the money, we were able to secure funding for medical centers. And I've got Commander Armstrong up here. He's the subject matter expert. So we currently have 10 in some of our limited jail cells, and that's what the sensor looks like there. Okay. So how do they work and why do we have them? We're getting into that. The sensors are in cells. They detect movement, and then they start monitoring breathing and heart motion. That sends data to a dashboard that gets so that our corrections officers can see the vitals of those in the cells. So captures the quality of the alerts, heart rate, things of that nature there. If things go wrong, obviously it sends an alert, and that's when that gives us an opportunity to respond. It's a tool, but the response is by the officers. There's an image of what the dashboard looks like. It's in different colored tiles, right, ranging from white, which is vacancy, to green, occupied, yellow, risk, orange, higher risk, and red is critical. What's nice about this is that we get these alerts where what we rely on now is our routine medical checks, right? And so those aren't as frequent. This will be real time. And so this will give us an advantage in terms of medical emergencies. Why do we need them? Like you've heard me say many times, over half of our jail incarcerated people are either substance use, mental health, or both, right? So we have a high rate of people coming off of drugs when they get arrested. Fentanyl, methamphetamines are the most common. Fentanyl is obviously the most lethal, right? We provide substantial medical care and medical-assisted drug withdrawal treatment once they get in our custody. But as you know, this approach works really well for the vast majority of the people that are incarcerated, but fentanyl is still lethal, and still people do not survive, even with the best care that we can provide them. And so we, as you can recall, last year we had 2 in custody deaths related to this type of deal. We believe that the medical alerts are going to increase the likelihood of us getting the life-saving efforts to the person sooner, which gives them a much better chance of survival, and that's what they're about. So that's why we need them. All right, with that, we're asking for your support in accepting this much-needed grant funding, and I'll take any additional questions.
Thank you, chief. Good presentation. I appreciate that. Yes, sir. Okay, John, question, please.
Yeah, thank you, Chief. I got a question about these monitoring sensors. How many are we talking about?
48.
48?
Right.
And where would they be located? I mean, which?
They would eventually be in every cell.
Every cell?
Currently, we have 6 in our holding cells and 4 in D unit. And they're single sensors right now. And the company we're going with will have dual sensor technology by Q4 of this year. That means we can monitor 2 inmates in a cell at the same time. So then that would make it amenable for us to put them in all the cells at that point in time versus the single cells. So when we have 2 people in a cell right now, like in holding, that single sensor is still monitoring, but it's trying to grab the closest person that's to the sensor at that point in time.
Okay, but in a normal cell, we have, what, 4 inmates?
2.
2? Oh, no,
2,
okay.
yes. Not 4. No, only 2 per cell. And then holding, we try to keep it singles, but sometimes there's 2 or 3 up there at a minimum. And then in D unit, where it's our kind of our maximum security area, usually there's only 1 inmate at a time in there.
Okay, and then the officers who will be monitoring these sensors, they'll be trained, right? I mean,
They are trained.
They are trained
They're
now?
already in operation. So we have 10 in operation. We have a dashboard that's up in the control room. It's up in our staff lounge. It's up in the booking area. It's up in the medical office. So they're monitoring it 24/7. So when the alarms go off, they go respond. When they have a red alarm, they have to go check on the person, and they have to write an incident report. They may get there and the person's fine, because kind of the way the sensors work is that we have these variances, but it measures it on 3-minute cycle. And then if it's outside the variance in 3 minutes, this alarm goes off.
Okay.
So that gives us the chance to go look at the inmate, make sure they're okay, or have medical check on them. We have another one, we'll go orange, basically the cell is vacant, right? So we can be moving people in and out of out of the booking area, and they'll go it'll go orange, but we know they're gone. But it also could say that they lost all their vitals at that point in time, and we want to go check on them.
Okay. So are we the first, or are the other cities? We're not the first? Okay.
We're not the first. Chelan County's kind of been leading the way. They have, I think they're up to about 20 or 35 in their single cells over there. But it is trending through corrections. SCORE has them. We have them now. This is what we call a passive system versus them having like this on them.
Okay.
This becomes problematic because the inmates want to tear them off and they become all over the facility, and then we're running into these false alarms all day long, which is problematic when we don't have staff to do that all day long.
Okay, sounds good. I like that idea because, save lives, right? And that's what we're all about. Okay, thank you. Thank you, Chief Commander. Thank you.
Councilmember Michelle?
Thank you, Councilmember. Chief, thank you to you and your team for doing all this hard work, and congratulations on being the first. I think we just need to be really clear that these aren't new positions. These are not 20 new officers. They're just going to replace, so, unfortunately. But we are still getting the 10 from the other money.
Correct.
And then I have a question. You said that to qualify for this grant, we had to adopt the Attorney General's model use of force policy. Yes. We already had our own use of force policy. How different is it?
It's not substantially different, and we think that the differences are gaps that we can make up through training and being really clear. We were in compliance with the model policy by all standards. But we had two differences. In the model policy, there were two issues regarding taser. One of them prohibited tasing people that was in handcuffs. And that sounds like, of course, we won't want to tase anybody in handcuffs. I will submit to you, because I've experienced it myself, people can be really dangerous in handcuffs. And so if you're saying take away the less lethal tool, that leaves other stuff like punches, kicks, batons. We think that the lesser force should have been left in there, but the model policy from the AG prohibited it. That was a change we had to make. So that's one of two examples.
Okay. And then what kind of additional training are they requiring?
There are some cultural awareness training that's been elevated, the de-escalation training formalized, which we had a good set for, but they want additional. There's curriculum now for, like I said, the sergeants to review use of force. Basically, it's how to investigate a use of force. I don't like to call it that, but I'll call it a review of use of force, presuming our officers are trying to do the right thing. And then it was a huge timeline of things that were in the CJTC training portal that weren't required until like 2028. We're now required to get them done much, much sooner. So we will be through all of that. We've got a lot of work to do, but everything will be completed by this time next year.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Shoker?
Yeah. Thank you so much for that presentation, and congratulations on being one of the being the first police department to meet all the requirements. So when it comes to the sensors, I think I saw 48 out of 60 cells. How much was it? 48 out of 60?
We have 10 now. We're adding 48 additional.
Okay, so there'll still be some cells that don't have the sensors.
That's right.
No,
Every cell will have it.
The only place we won't have it is our open area that we house people in. We have an F unit and a work release area, and those are open dormitory styles. There will be no sensors in there.
Okay. Yeah. Just wanted to clarify that. Thank you.
Yeah, I don't see them light. Are we good? Okay. Thank you, Chief and Commander Armstrong. I'm going to make a motion here, please. I move to authorize the mayor to accept grant funds from the State Criminal Justice Training Commission in the amount of $1.922,340,000. Authorize the matching fund in the amount of $579,375 from the City Red Light Camera Funds. Amend the budget and authorize the expenditure of funds in accordance with the grant terms. Authorize the mayor to negotiate and sign all necessary and related agreements and other documents.
And I second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed? Let the record show unanimous pass. Thank you, Chief.
Thank you.
Armstrong. And once again, happy belated birthday, Chief. Okay, we're going to move on to our last item, public work, and Councilmember Troutner.
Thank you. Several items on the agenda this evening. The first is something that we talk about every year, so it's always good to have you back. It's talking about the King County Waste Reduction Recycling Grant Program. So Tony Donati, thank you.
Perfect. Thank you, Council Chair, Council members. Pleasure to be here this afternoon to speak with you about accepting the King County Waste Reduction and Recycling Grant. My name is Tony Donati. I'm a conservation coordinator here in the Public Works Department. This is a 2-year grant that runs through this year all the way through the end of 2027 and is for $170,263 with no match. The city receives 3 solid waste grants, one from the Department of Ecology, which is our local solid waste financial assistance grant, and then 2 from King County, this waste reduction and recycling grant, and then a hazardous waste management program grant. Those 3, among other things, fund our very popular recycling collection events every single year. The most of this grant primarily funds the recycling events and then also allows residents and people to attend at no cost. So we really like the no user fee. We're one of only 2 cities in the area that have the no fees because it really allows everyone to come in no matter the circumstances and participate. Don't dump it off on the side of the road or anything. Your refrigerator, bring it down, no cost, we'll accept it. We had an event on March 7th, which was extremely well attended, especially for a spring event. We had over 1,265 vehicles. Last year, we had just over 1,000. Typically, we get about 850. So this year, we really exceeded numbers, which was really exciting. We have our next large Saturday event coming up on June 13th up on the East Hill at Canyon Ridge Middle School, and then again in the fall down here in the valley at Hogan Park. We also have 5 mini recycling events, and those are spread out throughout the year and also throughout the city. So we have one coming up on April 10th. These are Fridays from 9 to noon, so they're smaller, mini. Smaller, we focus on only a few different items: electronics, document shredding, TVs, computer monitors, and then scrap metal. So we just accept 3 items at these Friday mini events on a Friday morning. The first one is Friday, April 10th. And then the next one will be Friday, May 8th, up on the East Hill at the Kent United Methodist Church. So then we have a few more throughout the summer. It's going to be kind of in the northwest area of the city, and then also at Hogan Park. So what's also nice about this WRR grant, it also affords us to purchase other things and use this money kind of as we see fit. Specifically, we use it for outreach and education purposes. We use it for hard to recycle disposal costs, so light bulbs and styrofoam. And then also we are allowed to use it for waste reduction and recycling. So we purchase compostable utensils and plates, and then also the last 2 years we've used it for worm bins, rain barrels, and compost bins that we sell at our Saturday events. So those are very popular as well. We used to sell them maybe like 10 plus years ago. We brought them back last year and now this year, and so that's pretty exciting as well. So with that, I'm happy to take any questions.
All right, questions from my colleagues. Councilmember Boyd.
Yes. Hello, Tony. How you doing, sir?
Well, thank you.
Doing good. So you said that we collect scrap metal and plastic, right?
No plastic.
No plastic, just scrap metal, and we sell the scrap metal, right?
So our vendor that we pay, they collect large amounts of scrap metal. On our Saturday events, we can get 40 to 50,000 pounds of scrap metal. And then they take it at no cost, and then they go and bring it right here to Kent at Binford Metals. and it's processed there.
Okay, so we're not making a profit off
We
it?
don't benefit
Okay,
from that. That's the vendor.
That's what I was wondering. Okay, thank you. Thank you very much.
Good question.
All right, and just a reminder, because the events are different, you can get rid of really hard to recycle materials. How do people find out what is accepted at each event?
Yes, so thank you for saying that. We do use some of the grant money to send, the recycle events and the mailers are all paid for by the grants. So it's no cost to the city other than the grant funding. We do send out 2 to 3 weeks, 2 weeks-ish. I think this time we sent out a mailer 3 weeks in advance, and I'll show you. This is that mailer there in the middle there. We send that out to all residents about, again, 2 weeks ahead of time. So everyone should get that, and within it, it shows all the different items that we do accept. Our website, kentwa.gov/talkingtrash, it has the PDF of it there that people can see, and they can see all the event dates as well. Within the mailer, it talks about our upcoming mini events and any other worthy notes that should be noted as well.
Thank you. Great reminder. People can get rid of items, especially when you're doing your spring cleaning.
Exactly.
So, all right. If there are no other questions, I will read the motion. I move to accept grant funds from the King County Solid Waste Division in the amount of $170,263 for the 2026 to 2027 Waste Reduction and Recycling Program. Amend the budget, authorize the expenditure of funds, and authorize the mayor to sign all necessary documents subject to final terms and conditions acceptable to the Public Works Director and City Attorney.
Second.
Second. Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh, you're good.
Yeah.
We have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. Always good to see you. Thank you very much. Next, we get to hear from David Payne. We didn't get to hear from you at our last meeting because we ran out of time. So you are going to talk about the 2027-2032 Transportation Improvement Program.
Good evening, council members. David Payne, City Transportation Planner. Talking about the Transportation Improvement Program, continuing the conversation from January. Here to give a little bit of preview about the outreach and engagement phase of the update, as well as the projects that we'll be looking for feedback on. So a reminder for folks, this is if you're looking at all of the Transportation Improvement Program projects in their different categories, this is what you see, both in the document itself and in, online. We've got a QR code that we use each year to share what the information is online, but we also provide opportunities for in-person or in real life engagement for folks. And a reminder that the 6-year tip is for projects that we're developing and also that we pursue through grant processes. The cycle that we follow, again, January and February, we're drafting the material to use for the outreach that we have in March. And then any of the feedback that we receive and making any changes to the document that we draft in April, and will return in May for the public hearing and hopefully adoption before council. For folks following along, we make a number of presentations in March and April. So I'll list those for the different boards and commissions that we'll be visiting. The Kent Bicycle Advisory Board will be on March 30th. The Land Use and Policy Board, Land Use and Planning Board will be on April 13th. The Diversity, Equity, Inclusion, Belonging Board will be on April 21st. And we'll also have, as usual, a large format poster at Kent Commons on display. So now I'll go through previewing what the different projects are spread across the city. We've got 4. They're grouped as preservation projects in blue, safety project shown in orange, and a multimodal project shown in green. I'll go through each of these individually on the next slides, but as usual, these are projects that arise from the Transportation Master Plan and Comprehensive Plan and that compete well for grants, and that continued emphasis on safety, equity, improving connections, and the partnerships. And again, the QR code plug for those wanting to find more information online through our engagement website. So the first project, Council heard a presentation on last year. We're recommending that it be formally added to the TIP this year. This is for a safety project for an improvement and enhanced crosswalk on SR 99 or Pack Highway at the South 268th Street. So this is a very high use, a relatively high use transit stop for one that doesn't have a signalized crossing, and this would improve crossing visibility and access to the access for transit at the King County Woodmont Library, which is in the southwest corner of that intersection. And you can see an illustration of what the installation would look like at the top left. We also have a non-motorized project being added up near the Kent Des Moines Light Rail Station. So this would be for a non-motorized trail along South 240th Street between 30th and 32nd Avenue South. So this would have a similar section to the roadway improvements that have been made as far as the access to the light rail station, and that would improve connection again to the Kent Des Moines Light Rail Station. And last, the pair of preservation projects, one of which the second of which Council accepted grant funds for in January. So these are two preservation projects. The first is 84th Avenue South, or also known as East Valley Highway, and that's going to be between South 212th and State Route 167. Council may remember that the section of 84th Avenue South north of 212th Street was also a grant awarded to the city that we executed 3 years ago. So we're looking for this next section, and hopefully we'll be ready for competition in next year's grant cycle with the addition of this project to the TIP. And then again, the James Street Preservation Project was accepted between Washington Avenue and Central Avenue earlier this year. Both of these projects would overlay the street with with new pavement and evaluating curb ramps and push buttons for accessibility improvements. You see an image of some of the patchwork improvements on James Street, just east of 167. With that, I'm happy to answer any questions or take comments.
Questions? David, remind me of the timeline, because I know that there's certain things that we have to meet before council votes on this.
Absolutely.
Oh, we went over the timeline. So then there's a public hearing that's coming up. Is that the next thing that will come before us?
Yes, public hearing. Our online engagement material has the date specific, but I believe it'll be on May 17th.
Okay.
At normal councils.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. Councilmember Michaud.
Thank you, Councilmember. Is this non-motorized path, is that Thea Bowman on 240th? Yes, okay, thanks.
Shoker.
Councilmember Shoker.
Thank you. Will there be any major construction impacts for residents with any of these plans?
So there's multiple stages of outreach and engagement that we do for projects. This is one phase of them, but then typically after the award of a project, there's a design development phase. And then at that point, the construction impacts would be determined with outreach and engagement conducted as part of the design phase for the projects.
Thank you.
All right, any other questions? All right, this was information only, so no need to take action. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And next we will hear from Eric Preston, information only. Welcome back. Talk a little bit more this time about the local road safety plan.
So hopefully I don't have to talk quite as fast this time. Well, good evening, council members. I'm Eric Preston, City Traffic Engineer, and I do want to present two things that are closely connected, the local road safety plan and HSIP grants. HSIP does stand for Highway Safety Improvement Program, and so first we'll look at the local road safety plan. It is a data-driven plan that uses serious and fatal injury crash data and risk assessment to evaluate and prioritize Kent's roadways for traffic safety. We focus on the serious and fatal injury crashes because of Washington State's Target Zero initiative and our own Target Zero action plan completed in 2024. The LRSP update is required by the state for HSIP applications. And in each of the 3 previous rounds of HSIP, we have been awarded between 1.2 and 1.9 million in transportation safety funding. WashDOT does set the guidelines for the local road safety plan as well as the required elements that I'll take you through here in a bit. So when we start to analyze the data, we look at 5 full calendar years. And in this plan, it was from January 2020 through December of 2024 within the city of Kent. In those 5 years, there were over 11,000 crashes. That's about 2,200 per year, 190 a month, 44 a week, 6 per day, or 1 crash every 4 hours. I don't know if you're quite aware of that. Unfortunately, there were 60 fatal crashes, resulting in 62 fatalities. That's about 12 per year. That's 12 people who did not make it home, unfortunately. There were also 261 serious crashes with 408 serious injuries. By addressing the most serious crashes, which is our focus, we typically also reduce the total number of crashes. So for the graph on the right, the upper red line shows serious crashes over each of the last 5 years, and the lower blue line is the number of fatal crashes over those same 5 years. With that snapshot, let's take a look at our top 3 most common serious and fatal crash types. So our plan focused on those top 3, which accounted for 65% of our serious and fatal crashes in Kent. Compared to 2 years ago, the 5-year total of each of these crash types has increased. Pedestrian crashes, we had 98 serious crashes, up from 78, but they still account for 30% of all serious and fatal crashes in Kent. Angle or T-bone crashes, up from 45 to 59, accounted for 19%. So angle crashes are typically folks who run red lights or make left turns out of a driveway or a side street. Fixed object crashes were up from 32 to 43 in this 5-year period for 16% of serious crashes. Fixed objects, typically trees, fences, utility poles, that sort of thing. These 3 types are just the 3 most common types in Kent. Other cities might have a different top 3. But let's take a look at the most common risk factors that we see when we analyze these crashes. Excuse me. First, roadway width is a significant factor because of the distance or the exposure of both cars driving across and people walking across them. The wider the street, the further they have to go. 71% of serious and fatal crashes were on roads with 5 or more lanes. This is, interestingly, is down from 81%. Which we found in the last cycle. Traffic volume is also a significant factor. 87% of serious crashes were on arterials, which are our highest volume roads. Roads with posted speeds of 35 miles per hour and above accounted for over 82% of our top serious crashes, up slightly from 80% 2 years ago. We again saw a significant number of pedestrian crashes near bus stops. Roughly half were within 150 feet of a bus stop. If you move that window out to 300 feet, you're up to 72% of our serious pedestrian crashes, which is up slightly from 68% 2 years ago. A few other risk factors that our analysis found in hours of darkness. Fatal pedestrian crashes were more common than in previous plans. While half of all pedestrian crashes occurred in the dark, 63% of our serious crashes and 88% of our fatal crashes for pedestrians occurred in the dark. For all crash types overall, we see that 52% of serious and 79% of fatal crashes happen in the dark. And this is significant since roughly 25% of our vehicle miles traveled occur in hours of darkness. The surrounding land use also plays a role and can be a risk factor. Most of our pedestrian and angle crashes occurred in commercial areas, but fixed object crashes were more likely to occur in residential areas. For angle crashes, the type of access control is a factor. Over half of the serious angle crashes occurred at stop-controlled intersections or driveways. Most of those were caused by a minor left turn or through movement failing to yield. The remaining 46% happened at signals, which were caused by someone running a red light. Speeding is also a major factor. 81% of serious and fatal fixed object crashes involve speeding as a primary or contributing factor. So now let's go to the next step in our analysis. We analyze both roadway segments and individual intersections to see where we have these risk factors, and we prioritize these locations based on that. We look at 240 intersections and 124 different roadway segments, which are primarily the red, green, and purple streets that you see on the map. After analyzing the network, we create a prioritized list of intersections based on the rankings of 3 different measures. Measure 1 is the total crash rate. So this is the total number of crashes on that segment or at an intersection divided by the total number of vehicles that use that facility over the 5-year period. Measure number 2, we look at the total severity or societal cost of the crashes at that intersection or on the roadway segment. And measure 3, we look at risk factors, both the number of risk factors present, but also the highest risk score. So using these rankings, we move to our next element, which is we identify countermeasures. Countermeasures are simply changes we make to the road or strategies we implement to improve safety. It can be as simple as signs and markings, but can also be things like curb extensions, street lighting, guardrails, rechannelization, RFBs or other flashing beacons like you see in the picture, or roundabouts. Crash reduction factors are developed by research and published in the Highway Safety Manual and related CMF clearinghouse. These factors tell us that this countermeasure reduces these types of crashes by this percentage. And so after we match the countermeasure to the location, we start developing projects. So we can do that by location to a single intersection or road segment. We can also do it systemically by implementing lower cost improvements over multiple locations throughout the city. Or we also like to use higher performing countermeasures like the pedestrian hybrid beacon or Hawk signals, RFBs, or roundabouts. We prioritize these based on the benefit cost ratio as directed by WSDOT. And so we calculate the benefit, which is the societal cost from those crashes, times the crash reduction factor. We can get cost. The cost we use is the cost to build the project, and the benefit cost ratio just compares that. Hopefully we're above 1 or well above 1. In the example there at the bottom of the screen, if we had a 10 million societal cost due to crashes and a countermeasure that reduced them by 50%, that would give us a $5 million benefit. And if we had a project that could do that for $500,000, the benefit to cost ratio would be 10 to 1. So that's how we calculate that. So now I'll switch gears a little bit and talk about the HSIP grant application, which I covered very quickly last time around. HSIP does award about $30 million in federal money that's administered by WSDOT for city safety projects every 2 years. Projects are awarded in 2 categories, spot and systemic, and Kent was awarded, you can see there are awards over the last several years. In each case, between 4 and 6% of the total funding that was available each year. And so for a city of Kent's size, which is just under 2% of the state population, we were punching way above our weight class. So we overperformed. And then I'll quickly review the projects here in a bit. But in this grant process, the city completes the local road safety plan. In early March, we submit the HSIP applications along with the local road safety plan to WSDOT. And those were both submitted to WSDOT local programs on March 6th. WSDOT then selects those projects, selects projects from our prioritized list that they feel have the greatest benefit. So they choose those. Grant funds are then awarded in the late summer or fall, and then they go through design and construction. And so we've been very successful in funding projects, as you'll see in a bit. But just a quick review of the projects that have already been submitted that you've seen once. An RRFB here on 256th Street on the East Hill near 109th Avenue Southeast. This project had a lot of support from the school district. Then we had 2 pedestrian hybrid beacons, one on King County near Lake Meridian Park, which has a lot of support from King County Metro. And then on Pack Highway, this is a project that David just brought up that we're adding to the tip. on Pack Highway near 268th Street as well. So on the map, you can see those 3 projects located. And here's just a snapshot of the funded projects that we've had in local road safety plan. You can see there's quite a bit on there from the last 3 local road safety plans. And they come from multiple funding sources, both HSIP, but also Safe Routes to School, Washed-Out Ped and Bike Program, Transportation Improvement Board, and Washington Reconnecting Communities and Neighborhoods Program. So even though we have a lot of funded projects, it will take some time to see a change in the numbers, okay? But our goal is to drive the numbers down. To date, less than half of those projects are complete. But from the 5-year data we talked about earlier, and you can see on this slide, we know that we have a lot of work to do. Local road safety plan is an iterative process, and we will update this plan every 2 years. The Target Zero Action Plan, completed in 2024, will further help us identify and develop projects, strategies, to help us achieve this goal. So that's all the slides I have. I am available for questions.
Questions? Go ahead, Councilmember Boyd.
Yes, I have a dumb question. What is the societal cost? What is that?
Sure. I might wonder if this slide will help me explain it at all. I guess it won't really help me. So for each severity of crash, so it goes from just a fender bender when there's no injuries, all the way up for different types of injuries, minor injuries, serious injuries and fatalities. There are Federal Highway Administration, they calculate the societal cost for each of those crash severities. And those costs can be, they include things like lost time of employment, the actual cost of emergency response and all that. So, and even people's lost time in traffic, because of a backup regarding the crash. So there's a lot of crashes, and that's not a complete list of everything that goes into it.
Oh, okay. And then my next question is, these roundabouts, have they cut down on accidents? Are they worth their weight in gold? I mean, how are we looking at them? Are they?
Yes. Yeah, we love them, especially for the serious and fatal crashes. That's because they force people to slow down, and they change the angle of a crash. And so if there is a crash, it's usually more of a side swipe rather than a head-on or a 90-degree angle crash.
Okay. Thank you, Eric.
Yeah.
Councilmember Boyce, no question. Eric, when you talk about other factors, how is someone like under the influence of drugs or alcohol calculated into this data?
So, I'm trying to think of a simple way to answer this. So, when we're looking at the data, that 5-year window, we are right after that 5-year window closes, we start doing the analysis. And so, for most, I would say at least half of that window, a lot of the toxicology hasn't come back yet. So when I'm going through the data, it looks like only 15 to 20% of our serious and fatal crashes are related to that. But we know from Washington Traffic Safety Commission, they get to once that data all comes out, about half of the fatal crashes are related to that. And so it's a factor, but it's sorry, I'm wondering if am I going on a tangent, or what was
Nope,
it?
you're totally fine. No, you're totally fine.
So, sorry, I did lose my train of thought, but it is a factor.
Okay.
We see that it is, I can't see it in my data. Other things like speeding and all that are a higher factor, but we know that's an issue.
Okay, and then I have one more question. You'd shown a slide that had a car on the roadway and then a bike lane.
Okay.
And I know that you and I have talked about this before, but can you just speak briefly about how decisions are made when it comes to, it wasn't this one, it was different one towards, yes, this one right here. Because I know sometimes a project might look like it's a good idea because it slows cars down because now they see a bike lane, but it also creates this situation that maybe is less safe than what you're trying to get at, because now you've added this smaller lane and you've put pedestrians in that path. Can you speak a little bit about how you make decisions? Because I know, you and I have had the conversation. We get grant money, and it's great to use it and create these projects, but sometimes it creates another issue instead of trying to solve a problem.
Absolutely. So yeah, when you get a project like this for rechannelization, that has that countermeasure has I'm looking for my word, has a crash reduction factor associated with it. So we know that is going to either reduce all crashes or reduce, certain crashes by a certain percentage. And so, like in this case where we have, we create a single lane in each direction and a two-way left turn lane. That takes the left turn traffic out of the travel lane. It gives space for bikes to be, so they're not in the travel lane. And so, even though those bikes are not separated by, say, concrete or something, it's giving them space to operate that they didn't have before. And so, and often we do that project where on our planning maps, we already have a bike lane planned. And so we won't do that unless there is some planning to back that up in addition.
Great. Well, thank you. I was trying to make it safe for drivers and pedestrians, so I appreciate it.
Sure.
All right, anybody else have anything else they'd like to say before we move on? All right, this was information only, so thank you very much. And back to you.
Okay, we are done. We got 3 minutes. You guys want to wait to 5:20? Be okay to get started? Extra 8 minutes? Okay, 5:20, we'll get started. Thank you. Okay, we're going to resume our meeting here. We have, this is the Kent City Council workshop. We have one item on our workshop agenda tonight, and that's the downtown plan update. And we have Caroline, is it Echo? Okay, please come forward. Thank you.
All right. Well, I'm really excited to be able to show you some of the work that we've been doing behind the scenes on the downtown plan. I know it's been a while since you've seen the work that we've been doing, and really excited to see what you think of where we are right now. So quick overview of what we'll cover. We had the opportunity to present our criteria to the Puget Sound Regional Council, so we'll go over their criteria review report. We will look at the current kind of project timeline. We'll look at an overview of some of the plan recommendations, and we will also highlight a Central Avenue corridor rezoning that will help us start to implement some of the work that we're doing in the plan as quickly as we can. So to begin, we did on January 15th, we had the opportunity to present our criteria report was prepared by PSRC and presented to their Growth Management Policy Board. And they did recommend that our downtown was redesignated to continue to be our regional growth center for the city of Kent. This is exciting news. The stipulations that we need to finalize and adopt the plan in order for that redesignation to be in order for us to be certified. In blue on this screen, you can see the specific area that PSRC is concerned with. This is the area that they apply the criteria. The broader dotted line that you see there is our broader study area for this plan. It extends up to Showware and takes in Memorial Park on the north side, and it also goes over to the west, taking in Meeker and Washington, sections of Meeker and Washington on the other side of 167. Let me go back real quick. They did find, their conclusion was that our center does support their regional goals for creating compact, livable places that accommodate significant regional growth while promoting sustainability and inclusion. As part of that, they go through their criteria and evaluate us based on their projections. So according to PSRC's projections, we met all of the criteria. There was they recommended that we observe or kind of highlight the planned target density. This is according to their projections. We are at 43 people per acre, which they said was just below but substantially consistent with their regional criteria, which is 45 people per acre. So we're very close. We did complete a market analysis as part of our plan that shows that our numbers could be higher in the future, but it really is a matter of how we implement the plan as to whether we reach these goals and stay on target. But overall, it was very good news in terms of their report. We're on track. So I know in the past we've gone through the goals that we are including as part of the plan. And so now what I'm going to do is kind of dive deeper into some of the recommendations that are going to be attached to these goals. So the first goal that we brought forward to you was to create a safe, welcoming, and walkable downtown that tells Kent's story through art, design, events, and cultural experiences. And one thing that we are doing as part of our identity and placemaking goal is looking through the lens of this Power of 10 framework that's used by the Project for Public Spaces. They say essentially that every great city would have 10 places that you could go. That would be great. And at each of those 10 places, you would have 10 destinations that you might go to. And at each destination, you would have 10 or more things to do. So, for example, downtown might be one of Kent's 10 places, right? And in downtown Kent, we have Showware, we have Kent Station, we have the historic businesses along First and Meeker. We've got great parks. So all of those would be destinations in our downtown. And so our goal now is to make sure that we're outfitting each of those destinations within the downtown with at least 10 things to do at each destination. So this is kind of a framework. This is one of our goals, and it will help us sort of see if we're reaching goals for activation and placemaking and some of these things that we're hoping to achieve. So when it comes to identity and placemaking, we have a whole suite of strategies that we are now adding a lot more detail to behind the scenes. So I'll kind of run through a list. If you have any questions, I'll do my very best, but this is kind of like a plan condensed. We're toward the final stages of writing it. So activation and programming strategies is kind of the key here. So we know that, people attract more people. So we're looking at all the ways that we can reactivate spaces that have maybe been neglected or underutilized in the downtown. We're looking at the investments that are going to be made in the downtown parks and other public amenities in the downtown. How can we both invest in and maintain those to a level that we want? Strategies for vacant and underutilized sites specifically. We're really kind of honing in on how we can address some sites that have been long neglected. We're also, in conjunction with that, looking at advocacy at the state level for some additional tools to help us address some of those vacancies and underutilized sites. We are looking at a code enforcement pilot program that we can kind of restructure, maybe rethink some of the ways that we approach code enforcement as a city and try downtown, try a few places and see how that process works before we apply it citywide. But we see this as an opportunity to kind of test some things, to try some new ideas. A public safety partnership, kind of building on the work that our police department and other partners are already doing. We're really looking at sort of enhancing and uplifting the work that they're already doing, trying to make sure that we are thinking about all the creative ways that we can promote public safety downtown. Creating a regional cultural destination. I think this is one of our major opportunities within downtown Kent. We have a lot of great cultural anchors in terms of shopping and places to eat in the downtown. So we want to promote that regionally and make sure that when people think of great places to go to experience culture, they think of Kent. And this is a place you can go and find, a diversity of opportunities to experience new things or things that are maybe unique to your own culture as well. We're also looking at the Creative District designation from Arts Washington. There are some funding opportunities that are also associated. If we're able to kind of pursue that designation, then it would also allow us to maybe do some additional programming or other arts, implement some of the strategies really that are in this section. Oh, for the next part of the plan, we are looking at housing or living downtown. Our goal around housing is to provide a range of housing types, services, and amenities to support new and existing residents in a vibrant, mixed-income, intergenerational downtown neighborhood. So some of the strategies that we are using to try to achieve that, we're looking at some opportunities for site assembly. Naden is one place where we know we'll see some development occurring. But we're looking at, are there any other places within our study area that we could assemble or promote a public-private partnership to kind of get development moving? We're looking at, again, advocacy at the state level for certain tools. We're looking at the liability requirements around condos, for example, is changing. And so we have opportunities to kind of advocate for some new housing typologies that might fit our downtown. We have MFTE updates that we're hoping for and pavement to people. We've got some really interesting programs at the state that we're hoping to have our voice heard so that it fits what we need in downtown Kent. We're looking at transit and trail-oriented developments. Middle housing, how do we apply that downtown? Mixed income housing, and reducing displacement risks for residents that are already in downtown. In terms of economic development, our goal is to build a more diverse and resilient economy that highlights local businesses, encourages entrepreneurship, and attracts new investment so that businesses of all sizes thrive, careers grow, and opportunity is open to everyone. For this, we have quite a bit going on. We're kind of refining and exploring and trying to fine tune what we feel like is going to be the best fit for downtown. But we know that our downtown is unique and different from many other parts of our city, including the Industrial Valley. We have opportunities to support small businesses in a different way here than we could in other parts of the city. So we're looking at small business support and retention strategies. We're looking to develop and promote entrepreneurial resources and partnerships with higher education, like Green River College. We are looking to recruit larger employment anchors as well, because we know that we need both. We need a full range of sizes of employment opportunities downtown. We're looking again at this creative district designation, which can also promote and support economic activity around the arts. So we see that as an opportunity to promote maker spaces and workshops and studio spaces that might not otherwise fit housing or other retail uses. We would like to cultivate some tourism opportunities. I feel like we're just sort of putting our toe in the water, but there are lots of strategies that cities use, and so we're exploring to see what might fit downtown. We're also looking into an innovation district concept. There are cities across the country that are trying some new things, and so we're testing that out right now, talking about it. We're looking at, can we promote or encourage a micro enterprise project, something that might have a kitchen incubator or small restaurant stalls or flexible retail base, so that we can again promote entrepreneurship for people to try new business ideas. Similarly, pop-up markets or a food truck hub might also give people an opportunity to have kind of a lower threshold to try some new ideas. And it also adds to activity in parts of the downtown. And then again, there are a number of tools that we would like to see fit Kent better that we are exploring for use in the downtown. So in terms of equity and the environment, this is a goal that's a little trickier because we truly want to kind of weave it through all of our recommendations throughout the plan, but our goal is to transform downtown by embedding health, equity, and sustainability into every project, program, and action, building a community where people and the environment thrive. For this one, we are looking at assessing and reducing heat island impacts. There's an opportunity to do a stormwater park. There's some strategies from the county. They're targeting parts of Kent to see if we might have capacity to do something like this. We're looking at strategies to manage energy use, knowing that some of our larger employers as well require quite a bit of energy. And so how can we promote better use of energy in the downtown? There is an evergreen sustainable development standard that our consultants brought forward to us to look at. So we're considering whether or not that might be something that could support what we'd like to see downtown. There's EV parking and charging brownfields program. We have a grant right now to do assessments for properties that may have contamination on site. So we're looking for opportunities to help property owners discover what might be there and help clean it up, find funding to clean. And there are lots of other tools that are kind of on the table that we're looking to fine tune. Transportation and connectivity for goal 5. We would like to make it simple to get to and around the downtown, whether by walking, biking, transit, or car, with convenient parking and connected routes that link people to parks, shops, and destinations. For this, signage and wayfinding is something that kind of crosses over between what we hope to see from kind of an arts-based placemaking strategy that incorporates is part of the wayfinding in the downtown. But signage and wayfinding is also critical for people to feel confident and comfortable knowing where to go while they're downtown. Safe and convenient parking strategies, connecting parks, trails, and destinations within the downtown. So we've shown you, I think, the concept of the destination street that we're hoping to kind of link some of our destinations through the downtown. Right-of-way improvements for every mode, specifically looking at where we might have gaps or east-west connections to neighborhoods that might make sense to promote a variety of ways to get around. Specifically, we're also looking at, improving accessibility. So are there places in the downtown that we can focus on that would really help bridge the gap where we might have a few gaps downtown? As part of our criteria for the PSRC, we also are looking at our mode split. So how are people traveling to downtown, to and from? So are they using a car, biking, walking, et cetera? And commute trip reduction is a program that we have within the city already. So we're looking to kind of leverage that to help us with our mode split goal. There are streetscape enhancements that would make a big difference, specifically along Central. We're kind of targeting that in addition to what's happening already on Meeker, kind of carrying that through the downtown. We're looking at reducing rail impacts. There's some studies that Public Works is pursuing in combination with the railroad to sort of look at can we make these crossings safer within the downtown, particularly since we have two on either side of our downtown. And then more comfortable underpasses, so 167, how can we make that a pleasant space that people want to travel through on foot or bike or otherwise? And again, focusing on some key paths through the city, Central being one of those that we see could be a front door to the downtown. And then our last goal, we see as related to infrastructure and coordination or generally implementation of the plan. So for this goal, we hope to coordinate investments in infrastructure and capital facilities today to anticipate future growth and development downtown. And as part of this, one of the strategies that we think will be most effective as we've met with staff would be something like a downtown program manager, whatever that might look like. There are different forms and responsibilities that could take on, but essentially someone who can carry the torch forward and make sure that this plan is implemented would go a long way in terms of helping leverage staff time. So staff coordination and process improvement would be among the things that this person could help with. Volunteer and visual arts coordination, again, if we're trying to promote the arts and activation downtown, they could lead the way on some of that. Partnership development and funding strategies, so working with a lot of our existing partners, finding new ones, and finding grant opportunities and other funding opportunities that we could pursue. Marketing and promotion, so if we want to become a regional destination for cultural experiences, how do we promote that? Implementation progress reporting, so how are we tracking what we're doing? Are we showing results that you can take back and show the community what we've done? And then we're looking at, right now, we're about to show you our proposal for rezoning part of the corridor along Central to create more consistency across the downtown. It will also open up some development opportunities along that corridor that we think could help us implement this plan. And then generally, we're looking at creating more consistent design standards really across the city, but certainly within the downtown, we want to make sure that it's clear when someone wants to come in and build what we hope for them to achieve. We're looking at, are there additional broadband, Wi-Fi, energy production opportunities that this person could help with the coordination of, and then promoting tax generating uses in the downtown. This is also a way for us to provide this infrastructure. So if we have additional revenue generated from the development that occurs downtown, it will open up additional opportunities for us to implement these other strategies as well. So that's a very high level, quick overview of some of the things that we have in the works. And then this is one piece that is coming along beside the plan. So as we go forward to plan adoption, we'll also be carrying this rezoning along with it. So that it'll be kind of the first piece that we hope to see happen. So again, this purple line down the middle is Central. It is a key piece of what we are envisioning for the downtown as part of this plan. And so to help us kind of get that off the ground, here it's a little difficult to see with the coloration, but on the left-hand side, you can see the existing zoning. So there's GCMU all along Central Avenue. So that stripe, I don't know how to use this for this, but I don't know. We are essentially moving it all to DCE zoning, which is the downtown zoning, which allows for everything that would happen in the rest of downtown, we would have opportunities along Central as well. It does still retain the DCET, or the transition zone, that goes up to the neighborhoods up the hill. So it preserves a buffer there, of a little bit of a use buffer there, a zoning buffer, but the primary zoning would be DCE all the way across. Yes, would you like to chime in?
Just one small change as well. So, I don't know, do you have the?
Yeah.
Will it do it? Ah, there we go. So it's this center line along Central here that is changing. You can see this shows it better when it has the highlight, the GCMU versus the DC, and how it's bisected. We did some research of why it was like that, and that's because prior to some state law changes, the GCMU had a different mix of housing requirements, and we were able to limit housing along Central. Now it essentially allows all the same housing types, and so we said for consistency purposes and as well as market conditions, the DCE zone is preferred. And so let's make it consistent. There is this parcel along Smith. It's the La Huerta and the strip mall site next to La Huerta. You'll notice we're proposing to move it out of the transition zone. It's the site right there. The rest of this is all already zone DCE, so I'll show the highlight again, just so it's these two little parcels there, that we believe that there's some opportunity for some site assembly there, which, as you may recall, having really small parcels makes it difficult to get a project to pencil. And so we have had some conversations with the Downtown Advisory Group and the neighbors about rezoning just these front parcels. The back parcels have other environmental constraints as well, and so unlikely to redevelop at higher intensities anyways, but to allow some additional site assembly and facilitate that. DCET has a height limit, I believe it's 35 feet, and that was done as a compromise in 2013 with the neighbors who didn't want, they understood that downtown's changing and there's likely to be changes, but they didn't want it to go all the way up to single-family residential at the time. And so there's a new TOD bill. We're going to have to reassess this, but we believe we're going to be able to keep DCET where it is. When we said the parcel next to Smith, they said, oh, that's not really touching, it doesn't touch our neighborhood anyways. So we will continue that outreach and engagement, but wanted to highlight those two changes. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you. Okay. So with that, we are essentially looking at this rezoning piece. We will be sending our draft to the Department of Commerce for review first. Then it will be open for public review and comment. We are aiming for April. We'll see how quickly we're able to move it along. But in the very near future, we'll be able to open it up for public review. And then it will go forward to land use and planning and then to you all for adoption. But with that, I'd love to know if you have any questions or if there's anything that you feel like would benefit the plan. We would love your feedback.
Hey, just one quick comment. I really like the goals and the strategy that goes with the goal. I really like the way you have it laid out. So really can help you. Strategy should help you reach those goals, right? So good way of laying that out. More meaningful when you do it like that. So with that said, let's see, Councilmember Shoker, please.
Yeah, I just had a question about earlier in the presentation when we were talking about the planned density target.
Yes.
Since we're at 43 and the goal is 45, I'd love to understand like what barriers keep us from getting 45.
Right. So essentially, this is a projection. So the PSRC, based on our comp plan adoption, is projecting how much growth they feel like our downtown would achieve. And at their numbers, at their projection, they're putting us at about 43. And that's activity units per acre, which is a little bit different than just straight people per acre. But our projections from our market analysis show that there is a lot more potential in the downtown. The challenge is going to be whether or not the potential development, the possibility of what people could build downtown, is that really what they're going to build? So the 43 is really looking at kind of a realistic threshold for what we would maybe expect to see downtown right now. We are hoping that as we implement some of these pieces of the plan, that we can see that go up and increase some. So that's our goal, but we recognize that the projections, we don't always know what we will see from developers. Do you have additional insight?
This is a really wonky topic. And so what happened is after we did our comprehensive plan, PSRC took what we did, adopted in the comp plan and said, we're going to put it in our models and what do we expect? And so because the comprehensive plan also looks at concurrency with utilities and traffic and everything else, they said if trends were to continue as the plan is indicating without doing any of this work, we'd be at 43 units. And so when they're looking at recertification, there's 7 or 8 different criteria. And so they were saying they're really close, even if they didn't do this update. So they're saying it basically was a little bit of a like, we're going to give them extra time to finish this plan, which then with a rezone, with additional actions and efforts would change that as well. So it's a little bit of a, planning's always like this weird out of cycle, like everything's somewhat out of different steps depending on when plans are being updated. And so that really, it was from that point in time, and that's why we did the market analysis. The market analysis also gives a range of what could happen likely for projected activity units, and those are all above 45. So we submitted that also to them to say, here's some backup documentation, and they said, thank you, that's really good. But at the time when they were doing that certification, it's based on what you have existing. So there's many cities that don't have their plans adopted yet, and so we are one of the few that had like conditional certification, yes, where a lot of cities don't have plans adopted, and so they had a lot of yellow check marks or red check marks that needed work. So this was when they were doing that reevaluation, it was like, we're on track. It's really close.
It's awesome. Thank you. Councilmember Troutner, followed by Larmer, please.
Thank you. Thank you very much for this presentation. You are doing amazing every time you come before us and present this material. You know your stuff, and I appreciate that. I think you're hitting all the marks on these. When you talk about like the 10 places, 10 destinations, 10 things to do, I imagine you're considering options. You talked about small business, things that will generate revenue, but also things that will bring families and people down that don't cost you anything when you're looking at, what do 10 things look like?
Yes, and those 10 things can be as simple as walking on a trail or playing at a playground, or I mean there are a variety of things that could be free, that don't require a lot of extra. So,
Councilmember Larmer.
Thank you. Yeah, Carolyn, just to echo what Tony was saying, you impress us every time you come, and I love this plan. I love the structure behind it and the actual, the very actionable items in it. Couple questions. On the flexible retail bays, would these be a permanent fixture but just smaller?
So it's very, anything is possible at this point. So that particular strategy would involve working with development partners who would want to build it, because the city won't be building it. So we would have to encourage and promote what we would like to see, and ideally, what we have in mind right now would be something that would be potentially permanent as smaller scale spaces. So newer entrepreneurs could move through those spaces and then grow into larger scale spaces elsewhere in the downtown. That's one model that other cities use, where you kind of have incubator spaces and then you have larger spaces that
I can think of a couple small businesses right now that are not to the scale of a permanent place, but that incubator space would be great. I love that. And can you expand a little bit on the innovation district?
So actually, this is something that I'm putting out on the table. So my background, I previously worked for the North Texas Innovation Alliance, and as part of that work, it was really fun. There are a lot of cities across the country, really, that are starting to establish innovation districts of different kinds. It's really scalable. So there are really big, ambitious innovation districts that require a lot of legwork to get going. There was one in Dallas that I assisted with that essentially they just designated part of their downtown to say, this is our innovation district, and essentially like a call for innovation. Like if you have technologies that you want to implement in the public realm, like we are open, this area of our community is open for you to come and test your technologies. So that's a very small scale, kind of putting our foot in the water. But it's fully scalable, and there are some really interesting, Peachtree Corners in Georgia is a like really robust version. They're known internationally for what they're doing there, but there's a range of different things that could be possible, and I see potential in downtown because we have pockets where we don't have a lot happening. So if we were able to have, researchers or, again, companies that are startups coming in and testing out some of their ideas, it might be something that would help encourage additional economic opportunity downtown.
That sounds very cool.
Yeah, so some of these places are able to get like T-Mobile and like larger companies testing some of their kind of research, R&D kind of stuff with newer startups that have never done it before, and they're able to kind of cross-collaborate. So that's kind of an ideal world where you kind of get things rolling, and it's an opportunity that we're looking at right now. I don't know that it's fully formed yet as an idea for this plan, but something that we're looking into.
I love the creative thinking, though.
Thanks, we're trying.
Yeah, thank you.
Any other question? Once again, great presentation. You're doing a phenomenal job. I know you had a good onboarding process,
Oh, yeah.
so which makes it great, right? So, hey, that's all we have. So we'll take a break here, and we'll start at 7 for the council meeting. Thank you. Good job. Thank you so much.
Thanks so much.